So, as far as I can tell, real-time bidding can basically do everything that an IO can do at this point and more, right? RTB as a technology and as a buying platform is more powerful in basically every regard as compared to an IO-based buy. Now, this obviously has not always been the case. Over the past decade, programmatic buying, despite being a phenomenally more powerful buying channel for buyers with regards to activating and enabling data, has come with significant trade-offs, right? So programmatic has been sort of relinquished to lower priorities in publishers' ad servers. There wasn't sort of a seamless way to reserve inventory within RTB for future needs, and fees looked a lot different between IOs and programmatic. Over the past year, with header bidding sort of commoditizing or democratizing the access to inventory, it seems as though a lot of these trade-offs are no longer required or necessary, and as a result, programmatic seems more primed than ever before to become the primary, if not the exclusive buying channel for buyers moving forward, certainly over the next decade. So that'll be my focus for the next 30 minutes. And my panelist here who is much more apt to talk about this topic than I am and actually makes buying decisions, began his career in corporate finance, but was soon drawn to media and advertising. Spent time at Corbis and Razorfish before founding and running Accordant, which he sold to Dentsu in the back half of last year. The current co-CEO of Amnet, Art Muldoon. Thanks for joining me, Art.
Thanks, Kyle. Good to be here.
Awesome. So why don't we dive into it? Maybe as context for the discussion, can you just provide a quick update on Dentsu, the overall strategy, and how Amnet fits in that mix?
Yeah, sure. I'm now 8 months into the world of the Dentsu Aegis network, Dan, and it's been a pretty exciting time and a very kind of symbiotic, complementary relationship and merger between Accordant Media and Amnet. What we're doing is really to help really facilitate and accelerate Dentsu and Dan's recognition of being a people-based buying organization. And Accordant brings to Amnet both a system of technologies and data solutions we call ATS, the Audience Targeting System. And I should say that in our new world, Accordant Media has been a direct-to-brand focused programmatic marketing solution provider. Amnet effectively provides the programmatic solutions for the Dentsu Aegis group of agencies, primarily Kara, iProspect, and others. And so by bringing Accordant and Amnet together, we're really infusing Amnet with more specific technologies. We have our own engineers, product developers, and also data products to Accordant. And so it starts to really become a more integrated system.
Yep.
We go to market not as, I guess, as an evolution from a traditional, what a trading desk concept may have been, to what we look at as a programmatic specialist. And it might be more of a nuance that I care about than anybody else, but in general, I'd like to think that we've gone from a tech agnostic approach where we were all things to all people, we would operate any console at any time for any marketer, to actually having some bias and opinions about which technologies, which solutions work together the best. Some we've built on our own, like a DMP,
yep,
and integrated it with but other partners are integrated with us. So overall, the Dan approach is really to bring technology and data in an integrated solution, so that we're really talking to marketers less about kind of how the sausage is made, why we're bolting certain parts of the tech stack together, and now getting the conversation to focus on how are we engaging audiences, how are we affecting business outcomes. So long-winded way of saying, I think the evolution of programmatic is really moving from maybe a fascination and a focus on the specific technology point solutions to actually thinking about the discussion with marketers about how is the investment I'm making in programmatic moving the needle on my business, providing more insights, and really more engaging audience experiences.
Makes sense. So let's dive into it. What is the current buying mix within, I guess, Dentsu overall, but also obviously with Amnet as sort of the programmatic specialist? So IOs, programmatic, what's the mix and how do you see that evolving over time?
Yeah, it is evolving. So if you take it maybe from the higher level, thinking about the Dentsu Aegis network agency level, there is for brands, there's a proportion of media that's purchased IO based versus programmatic. Absolutely, I'm incentivized and excited about the opportunity to really see the continued migration, acceleration away from IO based buying into the programmatic world. And then in my specific focus area around programmatic, there are two main branches around sort of the PMP and exchange-based buys. Mm-hmm. And so we continue to work and engineer, solutions that really leverage both.
Perfect. So I'd love to dive into PMP, but before we get there, so obviously Dentsu has a robust data strategy, both with some internal technology you've built as well as acquisitions like Merkle. Can you talk about how that data strategy is employable across those channels and whether there are unique aspects? So in other words, can you apply the unique Merkle identifier or whatever data you may be utilizing for a specific buy evenly and equally across an IO and programmatic, or are there benefits unique to each channel?
Yeah, there are different benefits, I'd say. And you're right, just to mention, Merkle and Accordant were just two of 45 acquisitions that were done by Aegis last year. So certainly it's been a very acquisitive group. But I'd note that there has been a decisive focus on data and enabling data. And this is really fueling the strategy about being a people-based marketing company. And so the incredible asset that the Merkle M1 platform and data source data brings to the Dentsu Aegis network is something that we're leveraging across our organization. So Amnet is an integrated partner with this, and so there are deep programmatic integrations so that we can activate data in a people-based way. Yeah. There are other paths through IO-based buying of audiences that can still be fulfilled leveraging the Merkle data set as well. And that data set is both cookie and non-cookie based. It continues to really build deep publisher integrations so that there's syncing at the publisher ID level with the Merkle ID in the database. So when we start to think about planning in a people-based environment, it's exciting because we're also looking at ways of recognizing that we're planning around real deterministically organized information of people, and that pathway then helps us reduce the chances of fraud, of non-human traffic, and really looking at people as the original source of the engagement we're trying to accomplish. So it's resulted in I think a frame shift for Dentsu, focusing on people and the actual data assets in-house that can enable that connection.
Yeah, that makes sense. So at the outset, I sort of outlined my observation that it strikes me that a programmatic buy can now do everything that an IO can do and substantially more. So do you agree with that notion? And more so than just yes or no, what additional blockers or problems exist to start fully transitioning IOs into programmatic? Are there things we need to solve from a technology perspective, or is it just organizational inertia that we need to push through?
Well, it's a combination. I'd like to say yes to your original question. That we are really looking to structure solutions for programmatic that will replace the IO-based buying. That's my ongoing mission to see how to make that happen. But we're not fully there yet. There's some speed bumps along the way that we're wrestling with. Some examples are, in an IO-based buy, you really are looking with certainty at a budget and a delivery and a timing for that. And as we move into the programmatic environment, we're looking to achieve that in a programmatic guaranteed sense. but also there's more work that we need to do on not just the planning, the delivery of that, but the reconciliation of that. So that's something that still needs to be worked out and smoothed out. We need to do that in order to really do this at scale and across partners. Another example is when we initiate a programmatic buy, we may be working with one ad verification partner, and we may be delivering it and measuring it with a publisher who's using another partner. And unfortunately, there's still a large disconnect between different types of verification and viewability partners that you're using. So we need to really streamline that so that as an industry we can continue to grow.
And what about fees? So fees obviously look very different in an IO than they do in programmatic. We had a panel obviously that sort of dove into the ad tech tax, which to some degree may not exist or seemingly exist less within an IO. How are you guys thinking about that? Is that a problem you need to solve, or is there enough sort of additional value being brought within the programmatic channel that's justifiable?
Fees are a bigger topic for me in my day-to-day now than they were, say, a year ago. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is that now at Amnet, I have more brand-focused clients. And when we're really looking to deliver a certain reach or engagement at an audience by size and by frequency, it's a different type of validation than a traditional DR type of client where there may be a lot of fees, but if I'm actually getting real people to buy, I can back out the cost of the ad acquisition. Yeah. And so a DR provider is still understanding if they can get profitable business, and fees are important, but they have a certain benchmark that if you're achieving that, you're fine. In the brand reach and engagement environment, fees become more important because you're really looking on that return that the marketer can get programmatically versus an IO. And right now, IO seems a very simple and direct way to buy without being subject to layers and layers of fees. And so that becomes a bigger discussion. And also, the recent reports and studies over the last year about all of the taxes and the takes between the buyer and the seller has created more conversations and more questions among our client base for an explanation. And I think that's also another reason why in building our own proprietary technology and data solutions, we're looking to wring out as much efficiency in the ad tech ecosystem as possible, disintermediating or concentrating and really trying to provide that seamless delivery.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you're trying to move more business into programmatic for all of the the benefits we've been discussing. On the other hand, you've got marketers asking you more questions about fees than ever before. So it seems like there's either education or a problem there that needs to be solved. Are there things, you sort of alluded to it at the tail end of your answer there, are there things you need from your supply chain partners, DSPs, SSPs, quality vendors, et cetera, to allow you to sort of achieve this vision of moving the IOs into Amnet, into the programmatic business?
A couple things. One, we do have to provide information to our clients about all the participants in the ecosystem behind a buy. So for every dollar spent, where is all of that going? And so the more transparency, the better, because in the end, transparency is our friend. It gives the clients more comfort and trust in how their dollars are being invested. And as I found, we started Accordant as a purely transparent company in a world where there were questionable alternatives. Yeah. And I've just found that by being open and transparent with our partners, it actually brings them into a more trusted relationship. And if you're open to them, we're still in an industry that, I say we're inventing the future every day. And we're really bringing new tools and solutions to solve problems. And you need your client to be invested and recognizing that you don't have it right all the time and you're evolving and moving forward. So that if our partners in our chain are transparent and trusted with us along the way, it works for everybody.
Yeah.
Now the challenge is we do have fees that are added on in addition to, in different from an IO-based buy.
Sure.
We also need, I need to work with our partners to show that the value, the return with
is there.
Yeah, the technology, the data costs that we're incurring is actually that path towards buying better audiences, creating better engagement, and better planning than would be achieved otherwise. And so that's the work we've got to continue to do to show that.
Yeah, so you mentioned, obviously, for an evolution like this to work, programmatic has to be a more efficient channel. And in many regards, I think it is. In one sort of really newsworthy or being talked about lately way that it's phenomenally inefficient is the massive duplication as a result of header bidding, right? And is that something you guys think about? Is that sort of a problem you offload on DSPs because they're the ones that own the servers? Is it an opportunity? How do you think about that?
Every problem is an opportunity, right? And as we're inventing the future every day, we go through these cycles over the last really 8-9 years in the evolution of RTB and programmatic. We have new solutions. Then we look for scale. We look for, I should also say we're delivering audiences in a multi-channel environment. We're looking at display, video, mobile, social, email, in-stream audio, digital out-of-home, native, addressable TV. So the value of programmatic is to really organize audiences and segments in a custom, centralized way that can be then activated across channels. And so we're in this evolution, and as we look towards the bid stream and auction-based data, we're now seeing through header bidding. A publisher has an impression, they want to monetize that and improve the yield. So how to do that? Well, make sure that impression is commercially available in as many places as possible. So we've gone from being able to see one impression to now seeing that same impression is in 5 places, and we've now got to deduplicate to realize, oh, that's the same impression after all. So we're now in I think, moment of a little more chaos as DSPs and SSPs are really trying to still faithfully provide what is that really unduplicated, deduplicated impression to the buyer so that they can determine what that is. And I think that also shows that there's also an ebb and a flow between the level of sophistication between the buy side and the sell side. The RTB industry started, I think, with a lot of buy side capabilities and sophistication. Then there were more sell side yield management, monetization opportunities, and I think now we're in a different phase where header bidding, awesome. We've got an opportunity to participate at a higher order with a quality partner, but yet there's some complications that have been presented with that, and we just got to continue to work through that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are your thoughts from a technological standpoint? If we're going to move or continue to grow sort of the guaranteed opportunities within programmatic, is PMP sufficient? Is RTB sufficient, or is additional technology needed? Right, the ecosystem has spent time on automated guaranteed as a solution. Other solutions have been discussed or thought about. How do you see that evolving? Do you guys have an opinion on where you're going to build towards?
Well, first of all, PMP has become a vague term. It means a lot of things now, from programmatic guarantee, on down. Yeah. So it's hard to say that is it, but there certainly is. It's evolving, and I think the introduction of opportunities to leverage more direct buys programmatically will change and diminish the use of IO-based buying. And it's hard to know exactly what other, how it will evolve through header bidding. Ultimately, the path though is, and I think this is a really interesting period that we're in because of the focus on quality, the focus on real human engagement, and I think what's changing all of this though is maybe the notion of planning, and we now are using tools and technology to plan audiences, and the next wave is really planning towards the business outcomes for our clients. So I think the focus is going to be on planning audiences and planning business outcomes, and the technology will then innovate towards that.
Let's dive into private marketplaces just in a little bit more detail. From where I sit, I think when used well, they're phenomenally powerful, but the lion's share of PMPs are, for lack of a better term, a giant disaster. I don't think most of them are adding value, and again, I have a very small observation of the world, so I certainly could be wrong. What are you guys using private marketplaces to achieve? Because they can be used to achieve a number of things, whether it's accessing publisher data or trying to get priority with an ad server or just brand safety, knowing who's on the other end of the phone. What do you guys use it for, and have you seen it consistently drive those results?
It is inconsistent, but we still try because we believe that PMPs have been an important part of the evolution of programmatic towards quality, towards assurances with marketers of who and where their advertising is appearing. And I think it ultimately allows us to do, again, better people-based planning in the right environments. 8 years ago in the RTB environment, we were kind of proud to say, look, we're using automated capabilities that a human being couldn't plan for to be on 800,000 different sites against this audience. Now we're not really bragging about the number of sites we're reaching as much as the quality of the audience and the engagement behind that. And so PMPs are a path towards that. But I'd also say it's extremely kind of variable in terms of how each publisher is set up internally to support a PMP. And I guess it gets back to the need for us to have a consistent foundation so that we can scale the marketplace. Our buyers are not always sure when they're setting up a PMP with a publisher or their sales rep if the inventory that we're looking at is the top 1% or in a different category, or if there's other reserved inventory elsewhere or in a different vertical that's being held. And so there is an inconsistency around how to plan and activate PMPs, and then in the reconciliation process know if we're really finding the scale that we're looking for. So it's the goal though is back to the top, safety and scale. We work with large brands who are looking to really engage audiences at scale to move the needle. So that's where we're heading on that.
Awesome. Just a couple minutes left here. What can we expect from Dentsu and Amnet over the next year?
Well, we are really amped up on this people-based marketing concept, and the acquisition of Merkle and Accordant are still less than a year old. There's a lot more emphasis that's going to be placed on how we deploy that. There's an enormous opportunity. There's certainly a cry from marketers for more quality, more safety, and more security. We think this people-based marketing approach is spot on for where the media is evolving. So there's a lot more focus on that. Specific areas like video PMPs, we've seen a lot of movement towards video, both mobile video, display video. We want to help clients understand how to take advantage of that and the engagement that it brings to their audiences. So there's a couple ideas that we're really busy at right now.
Awesome. Well, I got Art Questions in the audience? Sorry to jump on the group here. Feel free to yell, or we'll get a mic to you shortly.
I guess I'll just come closer. Sorry.
Kirk's on his way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirk.
Hi.
What I do at PubMatic.
Adding value somehow.
So you mentioned that, ideally you'd like to move more direct IO dollars to programmatic pipes, but how are you working with your agencies internally like Cara and iProspect, who are used to the traditional digital buying model of, negotiating these campaigns directly with publishers? A lot of them are very skeptical about programmatic, and they're still, fighting internally, like, oh, how much budget do we want to allocate towards our ATD? So do you guys have a plan in place on how to address that? Are you, trying to become more collaborative with, the account teams at Cara and iProspect?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Absolutely, it's about collaboration. There's no specific plan or of movement, but it's about, my job is making Amnet a collaborative partner to support Cara, iProspect in the programmatic realm, because we are seeing that by moving from iOS to programmatic, there are benefits that are around data, around insights. So our focus is to show the value through the insights, the audience segmentation, that it's difficult. iOS can become a siloed type of a buy. You can get the scale and the guarantee, but it gets hard then to really digest that and tell the marketer in the end, for all of these IOs, how we move the needle. And in the programmatic environment, moving at that direction, we're back to the opportunity to really look cross-channel. As consumers, we ingest media in incredibly fragmented ways. So we really tap into each of those fragments, reassemble it at scale. And I think that's where the collaboration. So for instance, our analytics team, we have an analytics and insights group at Amnet. Cara and iProspect obviously do too. There's a lot of collaboration there to understand, holistically how this comes together.
Question?
Other questions for Art?
One back there.
You might get off easy.
Hi, you mentioned a couple times for programmatic guaranteed and for PMPs that reconciliation is the key to scale. What do you mean by that? Discrepancies, make goods, can you dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just really being able to show that as we plan and track and measure campaigns for delivery, that we can also be able to tell the story of how the delivery was achieved, and to your point, really validate if there were any discrepancies against what was originally planned, and also provide the insights, because if we're activating sort of really more micro audience segments, understanding how each of those segments might have contributed to the overall engagement goals, and then be able to report back and tell the complete story. So, I like to think in our planning world, there's no dead ends. There's the information that we're providing and the reconciliation, during and post campaign, then provides important inputs for the next phase.